Part 37. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 361. Chapter 361, It's like I started dating him. When it's time to get the certificate, no, it should be the day to apply for a replacement marriage certificate. Sunyan finally felt Lee Baikin's seriousness. Because everything she wore was prepared by Lee Baikin himself. Such an attitude made Sunyan feel that she was not going to apply for a new certificate, but to get one. So Sunyan looked at the person who was adjusting his tie next to him. We look like we are going to get married. Lee Baikin paused. What he wanted to do was start over. Lee Baikin has been tossing and turning since he discovered that the marriage certificate was too casual and couldn't sleep well. But he felt that it was unlucky to get married again after divorce, and he couldn't think of a reason not to let Sunyan think too much. If Sunyan thought too much, the already precarious relationship between them would become even worse. Now after Sunyan said this, he paused slightly. Just think of it as if we are getting married. Sunyan just asked casually, even with a hint of complaining. I didn't expect to get such an answer. Then Lee Baikin walked up to her and straightened her body. As the old man said, I was blind before and couldn't see your kindness. I feel sorry for you. All the procedures between us were so hasty. Are you willing to give me a chance and start over with me? Restart. When Sunyan heard this, there was only one thing that came to her mind. It's like I started talking to him. But at the next moment, she couldn't help but take a few steps back. Because Lee Baikin knelt down on one knee and said, Sunyan, please start over with me. The sincerity in Lee Baikin's eyes left Sunyan Shen without a single doubt. Sunyan thought, no matter what happens in the future, no matter whether Lee Baikin is sincere or not, Sunyan feels that he will never forget such a scene in his life. She smiled, are you proposing to me? Lee Baikin shook his head, no, I am apologizing to you, apologizing for my previous mistakes, and asking you to start over with me. If I propose, I don't respect you very much. If you want it, then I will make it up to you. I owe you, I will provide you with everything, as long as you give me this opportunity. Apologize. Sunyan looked at the man in front of him. And Lee Baikin was in Sunyan's sight, saying word by word, Sunyan, are you willing to give me a chance so that we can start over, so that I can slowly make up for you and make up for the so-called things I have committed, make up for all the pain I have caused you? When he said this, everything in the dream came to Lee Baikin's mind. He is despicable and cowardly. I didn't dare to ask Sunyan to confirm whether those were dreams. But the way you look now really looks like a proposal. Sunyan's smile slowly climbed up her cheeks. After Lee Baikin heard this, he responded with a thoughtful expression, but if you kneel on your knees, it's like going to a grave. Sunyan was able to break through his defense in one fell swoop. But since you said it was like a proposal, it just so happens that I have a ring here. Lee Baikin took out a ring box from his pocket as he spoke. Sunyan. Why does he have a ring box? Lee Baikin originally wanted to find an opportunity to put it on Sunyan today. Now that the opportunity has come to his door, of course he must cherish it. Sunyan is not stupid, of course she can see Lee Baikin's preparations. So Sunyan, are you willing to give me this chance? Lee Baikin said seriously again. Sunyan smiled and handed over his hand. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 362. Chapter 362 The Scheming Man. Civil Affairs Bureau. Lee Baikin was very careful in every aspect. Filling out the form, he even wanted to help Sunyan fill it out. Fortunately the staff stopped it. During the photo session, Lee Baikin was also very selective and carefully selected the last one from the many photos. It is exactly the same as getting a certificate. Xiaoha and Mo Bao, is it 110, someone is cheating on marriage here. When the red poke landed, Sunian's heart skipped a beat. Immediately he looked at the man beside him. Unexpectedly, I saw the man take out the candy from his pocket and hand it to the staff as if by magic. Be happy, be happy. Sunian. This is not over yet. Josu even brought a few bodyguards to start handing out wedding candies. The whole hall was filled with joy. Sunian felt that if Lee Baikan really acted, he would have done a perfect job in this scene. However, Sunian thought of another thing. Lee Baikan, who was in high spirits, suddenly froze the smile on his face. He made it so real, it was completely like getting married. So was there a wedding night tonight? This is good, the old man's gift can come in handy. Lee Baikan had a headache when he saw Sunian's excited eyes. The wedding night, whether it's a night or not, how it's a night. If not, then it would be a bit of a pity. If it's night, then what kind of night it is? This is indeed a problem. Go home. Sunian planned to get the gift excitedly. But before he took a few steps, Lee Baikan grabbed his wrist and brought him into his arms. Let me give you a good hug. I wanted to hug you just now. Sunian, I suddenly feel that calling you this is too alienating. How about I change my name? Lee Baikan rubbed behind her ear. Old man, they all taught you Nian Nian, but I still call you Sunian. This seems so strange. It's obvious that we are husband and wife and a family. What should I call you to make it seem more intimate? Intimacy is not just a word, as long as you can let me be intimate tonight. Then you can call me son. And why are you wasting your time on this topic? Let's get real. You can call me whatever you want, it doesn't matter to me, because in my heart, I am lucky that you can be so close to me. After Sunian finished speaking, Lee Baikan immediately put his finger on her lips to signal her to silence. Have you forgotten what I said before receiving the certificate today? We have to start over. Don't think of me as the same Lee Baikan before, that brainless licking dog. I don't ask you to believe me now, so just treat me as the person who pursues you, give me a chance to pursue you slowly. When he said this, he paused and said, it's best to keep a high profile and never let this scumbag like me succeed. After all, torturing your wife is a temporary pleasure, and chasing her to the crematorium. The man spoke slowly and unhurriedly, and when he said every word, he couldn't help but ignore the seriousness in his eyes. Sunian was also shocked. After all, Lee Baikan actually heard the words chasing his wife and crematorium from Lee Baikan's mouth. Based on Sunian's understanding of the domineering president, Lee Baikan should not be able to know. But these questions are not important. Sunian only cares about one problem now. What does this guy mean, not giving him a bridal chamber? Oh, I understand. He said this just to divert my attention, to keep Lan Min's chastity. Damn man, he is so cunning. Lee Baikan, that's not what he meant. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 363. Chapter 363 Wedding Night. Lee Baikan smiled helplessly in his heart, and then picked her up. Let me think about what to call you, sweetheart. Darling. When the man was talking, he would rub the tip of her nose slightly with the tip of his nose. This fluctuation made Sunian feel a little itchy. But I didn't know where it was itchy, so I couldn't help but laugh a few times. What should I call you? His voice was filled with doubts, perhaps with confusion. Sunian couldn't help but be curious about what he would call him. How about Nian Ba? Sunian didn't know what to say with these two words. Why should I expect anything from this guy? He is really like a dog and can't spit out any ivory. Nian Bao, then if Mo Bao is born in the future, he will end up falling behind his peers. This guy is really perfunctory. How about I take his virginity away today? Then I write the word Sunian upside down. Li Baikan was not surprised at Sunian's reaction, because he did it on purpose, but it seems like you are not very satisfied with the name. In that case, how about Susu? When he said this, Li Baikan paused. For a moment, this is for shouting in front of outsiders. If there are only two of us, how about my sweetheart? Sweetheart, Sunian repeated subconsciously. Well, when we are alone, the man lowered his voice and even bit the tip of her ear gently after finishing speaking. Sunian. At this moment, Sunian's mind was filled with some indescribable pictures. Okay, okay. When you are alone between two people, hey, just wait for this. Sunian immediately slipped away from Li Baikan's arms like a loach. Baikan, it's decided. But at this time, I think we need a drink. I'll go get the wine now. After that, he left. Not even giving Li Baikan a chance to speak. Li Baikan held his forehead helplessly. He originally wanted to say some sweet words to delay her for some time, but he didn't know that she slipped away so fast. Could it really be possible for her to succeed? But if he makes other excuses, then Sunian will definitely think too much. Before Li Baikan could think of a solution, Sunian came over with 2 glasses of red wine. She also changed into a red suspender skirt, which was as beautiful as silk and was visibly beautiful. Her thick hair was scattered around her waist. As she walked, a few pieces of hair slightly rubbed against her broken bones from time to time, making it impossible to move. Open your eyes. Even now it is not an exaggeration to call her a fairy in the jungle. But even though he clearly knew that the woman in front of him was a fairy of the jungle, he was willing and even eager to prostrate himself under her pomegranate skirt. Sunian walked up to him and handed him the red wine. Baikan, you said before that today is a fresh start, so tonight can also be regarded as our wedding night. How about we have a drink? The woman's eyes are as bright as stardust. If this guy doesn't drink this glass of wine honestly, then I have to drink it for him too. Jesus has come today. I can't keep his virginity. Li Baikan now wanted to regain some sense and look away from her. But he found that he couldn't do it. Especially when she threw herself into his arms like an elf. Baikan, are you okay? Susu. This unfamiliar title made Sunian a little confused. You are so beautiful. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 364. Chapter 364 Drink it all in one gulp. As a humble and shameless robber, Li Baikan found it impossible not to be greedy when he saw the gold mine in front of him. But I want to correct you, tonight is not our wedding night. He lowered his head and pressed it against her forehead. On the wedding night, there should be a red quilt, dragon and phoenix candles, and descendants. I have all these things. Not prepared. This made Sunian a little confused. After all, Li Baikan has been working so hard recently, so why hasn't he even prepared for this? Because I want to give you a wedding. His kisses fell sparsely on her face. Well, I also hope that I can clear my name and let everyone know that I am not the blind Li Baikan before, but Li Baikan is a new man. However, Sunian is still somewhat sensible. He immediately raised the wine glass with the gift in it, but my hand over wine is ready. You are right, but don't waste it. This is also my intention. You have done so much to start over, and I want to take it too. It's my own attitude. Li Baikan looked at the wine glass in his hand. The brain is spinning rapidly. What should he do? Sunian saw the hesitation of the guy in front of him and immediately took a strong dose. Baikan, if you don't want to drink, then you don't have to drink. You are my sweetheart, so how can I force you? Do things you don't want to do. Why are you dilly-dallying about? Aren't you going to feel happy when the time comes? Take advantage and behave well. With this attitude, Lee Baikan can be sure that if he obeys, then Sunian, a woman, will definitely give birth to Mo Bao in the shortest time, and he will be completely useless by then. But, if he doesn't drink, he really can't find a reason to drink. Lee Baikan can be sure that this is the most difficult time in his life. There is no other way but to take a gamble. I bet the old man's gift is not too powerful and he can handle it. I hope the old man won't cheat his son too much. Lee Baikan reached out and took the wine glass. The two of them had their arms entwined and drank wine. Sunian was so happy that she drank it all in one gulp. This made Lee Baikan, who originally just wanted to take a sip. What else could he do? Naturally, he also finished the drink. Sunian's eyes immediately lit up when he saw Lee Baikan finished drinking. Rub your hands, now you are waiting for the medicine to take effect. As long as the medicine takes effect, I can get the calligraphy treasure. Ma Bao, mother's good calligraphy, come quickly. Lee Baikan. Then he felt the heat in his lower abdomen. Sunian also knows the principle of striking while the iron is hot, and immediately sticks to Lee Baikan. Baikan, I am really happy now, the kind of happiness that cannot be described in words. I can finally get what I want. Lee Baikan, I know, you don't have to be so direct. Sunian's wine glass contained myrrh, but with the man's skin touching her and her hormones intertwining, she couldn't help but feel a little hot. There is also tension. Although she has been preparing for this moment for a long time. But she was still a little nervous. The memory of the previous life is actually not good at all. Girls all hope to be in bliss with the man they love, but when she thought of Mo Bao, she suppressed the fear in her heart, and then raised her hands to wrap her arms around his neck. But just when she raised her hand, her head felt dizzy. The next moment, everything went dark. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 365. Chapter 365. You don't think I knocked you out, do you? Lee Baikan, who was trying to restrain his desires, felt something strange about the person in front of him, and subconsciously stretched out his long arms to hold the person in his arms. When you see a woman's closed eyes, and when you can't hear her random heartbeats. He was suddenly startled, and immediately picked the person up. Then the whole house seemed to come alive. The family doctor came in a hurry. The conclusion reached is that Sunian is drunk. The moment he heard this conclusion from his family doctor, Lee Baikan really didn't know what to say. I can't drink, but I drink so happily and in such a hurry, no wonder I don't get drunk. A conclusion can be drawn from this matter. She really doesn't care about her body. After the servant prepared the sobering soup, he took the person into his arms and fed her in small mouthfuls. But how can a drunk person be more obedient? Lee Baikan could only coax patiently. It took more than 10 minutes to finish feeding. After feeding her, Lee Baikan patiently scrubbed her. When everything was done, Lee Baikan originally planned to go back to his room, but he couldn't move his steps no matter what. He gave a final sarcastic laugh, then lifted up the quilt and lay down next to the woman. After all, what could a drunkard do to him? The next day, when Sunian woke up, she felt that her head was hurting to death. It was that kind of heartbreaking pain. What's wrong? Do you have a headache? A slightly tired voice sounded from beside me. Sunian fell into the warm embrace before she could tell. Her forehead was gently pressed. Gradually, the heart-wrenching pain gradually disappeared. When consciousness returned, Sunian thought of the situation that was easily available last night, and immediately woke up. Why am I unconscious? Damn it, such a good opportunity, why did I miss it? That's not right, Why did my vision go black and I don't know anything? When my vision went black, could it be that this man knocked me out? In order to prevent this little woman from throwing the pot on him, Lee Baiken quickly leaned into her ear and said, "Don't you know yourself? You can't drink but you still drink. Not only that, you drink in such a hurry. My sweetie, you know, it really scared me at that time. Hee, in my last life I was in the business world, and I couldn't get drunk even if I drank 1,000 glasses of wine. It was just a glass of red wine. To me, it was like drinking juice. This knocked me out and made me mad. You don't think it was me who knocked you out, do you?" Although Sun Yan felt it in his heart, his body froze when Lee Baiken said it so directly. Lee Baiken deliberately sighed deeply, "Just like what you said yesterday, yesterday was our wedding night. I knocked my wife unconscious on the wedding night. If this news gets out, then others will maybe you think I'm a fool. Although the truth is this, it is obvious that this guy is just looking for an excuse. If you don't believe it, then I'll ask a servant to prove it to me." "No, no, no, Baiken, it's whatever you say after all. To put it bluntly, I still have to blame myself for not living up to expectations." Sun Yan was picked up as he spoke and walked outside. The final result was that Lee Baiken called in the home surveillance video and the family doctor. "The posture is that big?" Sun Yan couldn't help but say when he saw such a posture, "Baiken, is that the case? Is it like this? As for it, after all, it is related to our wedding night, and I don't want to leave an irresponsible impression in your mind." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 366. Chapter 366, Forgot the issue of drinking capacity. Seeing Lee Baiken's serious face, Sun Yan thought of another thing. Her ability to drink 1,000 glasses of wine seemed to have been developed through socializing after she became the president of the Lee Group after Lee Baiken died. At this time, she seems to be a noob indeed. When she realized this, Sun Yan's heart really collapsed. How could I forget? At this time, I don't have much drinking capacity at all, and I'm still bored. Why can't I even think of such a basic thing? If I hadn't been so anxious when I drank last night and had a little more awareness, I would have been able to deal with this guy. Why, God, why do you want to play with me like this? Or I can choose a less strong wine." Lee Baiken. He motioned to the servants and family doctors to go down, and after they left, he held the little woman in his arms again. "Do you still have a headache now? If you still have a headache, then I will continue to rub it for you." Sun Yan was completely speechless now. She is also completely emo. After all, such a good opportunity was gone. And it's not her own fault. Lee Baiken naturally couldn't let the little woman in his arms suffer so much, so he coaxed, "Maybe it's not the right time." Timing. Is it really the right time? That night in my previous life was 3 months later. 3 months later. When Lee Baiken heard these words, his body suddenly stiffened. Is he due to die in 3 months? When he thought of this, Lee Baiken's eyes showed a hint of evil, but the gentle voice on his lips did not stop at all. "It's also my fault. I was thinking about the marriage certificate, so I forgot about this wedding night. Timing, knowing that the timing is wrong, but it's like being able to feel good as much as possible while this guy is alive. Why is it so difficult?" Although Lee Baiken has been in a high position for many years, he has already been able to control his emotions with ease. But every time I hear Sun Yan being so direct, I feel a little bit offended. Fortunately, Sun Yan was leaning in his arms at the moment and could not see the expression on his face. He also knew very well that he should do this now, and then he said with a slightly regretful voice, "Last night, you were dressed like that. I was really a little emotional, but I didn't know the time was wrong, my dear. I will definitely do it next time. You have to choose the right time." After all, when he said this, he kissed Sunian on the cheek. "Sunian, what is this guy doing? What is this guy doing? Is he hallucinating? What does he mean?" The reason why Lee Baikin did this was because he knew that if he didn't give this little woman some sweetness, then she would be ruined. Forget it before, the key point is that if Sunian failed now, she might run away with Sun Ying-er. What kind of feelings can be cultivated when everyone is gone? Sure enough, after saying this, I heard that Sunian had already begun to intensively plan the next plan. Hey, what else can Lee Baikin do? The only thing we can do is to take it one step at a time. But Lee Baikin knew that what he had to do now was to give a good massage to the little woman in his arms. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 367. Chapter 367 Sunian's Worries. Such a good opportunity was lost because of my own mistakes. Sunian's depression could not be easily dissipated. At this moment, the cell phone rang. Sunian took the phone and pressed the answer button. "Sister, what can I do?" Sun Ying-er's hearty laughter rang out on the other end of the phone. "It's nothing, I just want to ask you, how come you and Lee Baikin are divorced for such an important matter, and you don't give me, a sister, a break? What's in your eyes, my sister?" "Divorce?" Sunian looked at Lee Baikin. The two of them stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes. "Yes, now the whole world knows that you went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get divorced, and the clinker couple broke up. How about I arrange for you to choose your concubine, your male favorite, and your next wife? Don't worry, you will be my wife, my sister. Your future depends on me, and I promise to find you a good home." Sunian. Although I don't know what happened, I really felt a little bit moved when I heard my sister say this. Lee Baikin's face turned dark. Immediately let go of Sunian, picked up the phone and started investigating. Sunian opened Weibo silently. Sure enough, the news of #COS divorce hashtag topped the list. Everyone below is saying that they were showing off their affection in such a high-profile manner the day before yesterday, and now this is the case. Everyone is guessing what is going on. Actually, I wanted to say yesterday that the relationship between Lee Baikin and Sunian was not very good. You see the old man being so high-profile and kind to his daughter-in-law. Let me tell you secretly that Sunian is favored by the old man. Lee Baikin doesn't like it at all. Maybe Lee Baikin is unhappy when he sees Sunian tossing a little too much. Hey, what good can come out of a wealthy marriage? Sunian was so angry on the internet before, but now she may be crying secretly in bed. What is this called? This is called showing affection and dying quickly. Sunian saw that many insiders came out to reveal the inside story between her and Lee Baikin, and she knew that it was Lan Min or Huo Linyuan's handiwork. It seems that Lan Min's face has been saved. Sun Ying-er was just joking. Of course she knew about reapplying for a marriage certificate. Huo Linyuan is very close to me, how could I not keep it? Yesterday the first stage of the operation was successful. By the way, what are you going to do? How can you beat that guy hard, face? Sunian frowned, looking as if he was facing a gloomy situation. After a while, she spoke. What do you think we will do if Lan Ren walks around in front of us with a plastic surgery face and disgusts us? Phone over there. This is indeed an important question. Sunian knew very well that in ordinary novels, a rampant and vicious female supporting character like her was the one the heroine would struggle to defeat. Although the plot has changed a little now, it is different from the previous life. But this is the most basic principle and will not change. The person on the other side of the phone was silent for a long time. Although this is not the issue you should be paying attention to now, what you are talking about is indeed a very important issue. When I think of her with a plastic surgery face hanging in front of me, I really want to vomit. Sunian, but Huolinyuan has so much money anyway, so he won't be reluctant to pay for Lanmin's surgery. It shouldn't be too ugly. Sun Ying any surgery has risks. After all, Huolinyuan is rich, not a god. What if something happens? What if he becomes disabled? Both women thought this made sense. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 368. Chapter 368 Nian Nian's Loyal Dog. Nian Nian, go to Weibo and see, Li Baikan has posted on Weibo at this moment. Sun Ying suddenly changed the subject. Sunian casually clicked on Weibo after hearing this. It is estimated that it was the official Weibo of the Li group that issued the announcement. Unexpectedly, she was stunned when she clicked on the hot search list. Sun Ying's excited voice rang out, "Wow, Li Baikan is a good name. Just this name, it's awesome. Nian Nian is a loyal dog. Nianyan's loyal dog." Sunian recited it silently in his mind and swallowed. Is this real? Hundreds of marketing accounts were issued at the same time. It's not his fault. Even if it wasn't him, it was the old man who ordered it, and his face was restored. Sunian clicked in. I was stunned when I saw the avatar on Weibo. This is what Li Baikan took for her when they went to the temple to burn incense a few days ago. Nianyan's loyal dog, Li Baikan, would like to clarify today's news. I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau not to get a divorce, but to get a replacement marriage certificate. Because the marriage certificate was accidentally torn by a dog, and the marriage certificate is an important document, I went to get a replacement. I just went to the Civil Affairs Bureau, as the following photos can prove. At the same time, I will bear the responsibility of being a husband and immediately hold my wife responsible for spreading rumors. The picture below. One of them is a dog chewing a marriage certificate, and the other is a new marriage certificate with a code showing the date. Netizens didn't believe it at first, but they saw Erha's wisdom. I believed it immediately. Xiao Ha, why did you believe it? Oh, why does it snow in June? I was wrong. Doi was not wronged as much as I was. There was a lot of noise on the internet, but Sunian's eyes stayed on Li Baikan's Weibo name. This Weibo name. At this moment, she was hugged from behind. Think this name is childish. It's okay if the man didn't say this, but when he said it, Sunian laughed out loud. Li Baikan continued to mind his own business and said, when I posted on Weibo, I was thinking about what name I should use. If I don't use it well, the old man will definitely come and talk to me. After all, there is a saying that the waves behind the Yangtze River push the waves ahead. I have to photograph the old man on the beach. Sunian, who was originally curious about who Li Baikan was, said. She looked sideways at him. I saw the seriousness in the man's eyes. I am willing to be your loyal dog. He approached slightly. Sunian is not a fairy. Even though she has lived a lifetime, she still cannot help but avoid the world. Haunted by such love words. Li Baikan kissed her on the corner of her lips while she was panicking. I believe the old man won't talk about me now. But the next moment, Sunian pushed him away as if he had just woken up from a dream. Such a reaction caught Li Baikan a little off guard. You are wrong. The old man will definitely tell you. If I guess correctly, he will call you soon and ask you why you are doing this. For some reason, Li Baikan looked at Sunian in front of him. He felt that her smile at the moment was a bit fake. How come this guy is getting better and better at talking? I remember this guy's setting is that the heroine's Bayu Egwang looks like Bayu Egwang. Didum. Li Baikan smiled and planned to continue to say some love words shamelessly. The books he read said that women just like to hear sweet words. If they can't be moved, it means you don't say enough sweet words. But at this moment, The cell phone rang. No need to guess. It must be the old man. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 369. Chapter 369, Covering One's Ears and Stealing the Bell? The moment Lee Baiken pressed the answer button, the old man's disgusted voice sounded. Lee Baiken, I remember when you were born, the doctor told me during the birth examination that there was nothing wrong with you. Why do you seem to be missing one now, brain? Tell me whether I should hold any hospital responsible. Lee Baiken. Although Lee Baiken knew that the old man would definitely cause trouble for him, he never expected that the old man would be so vicious. Sunian wanted to laugh immediately when he heard this. Fortunately, she quickly picked up the pillow and blocked her mouth. I can't laugh out loud, I definitely can't laugh out loud. You have to be good to Nian. I welcome this, but can you use your brain to say that you are good to Nian? What is Nian's loyal dog? You are a dog, so what the is your father? You are dragging me down. Go into the water, now you are embarrassing me in front of those old people and I can't hold my head up. Why did I give birth to a son like you? Lee Baiken pressed the mute button very simply and threw the phone aside. Sunian was a little dumbfounded by such straightforwardness. Is it really okay for you to be like this? Dad is already angry. What if you make him even more angry? And because Dad is getting older, what if he is really angry? It's okay. I've read the old man's physical report. He shouldn't be angry at anything, and if he is really angry and does something bad, then the old man's exclusive family doctor will report it to me as soon as possible. Lee Baiken sat back next to Sunian, and then put him in his arms. This time it's Huo Linyuan's method. I will do something. At the same time, I will arrange for Josu to give you a report if you do anything. If you have any ideas, you can tell me directly. Sunian thought for a while and then asked, do you know what Lanmin is like now? I don't know. If you want to know, then I can arrange for Josu to check. Lee Baiken played with a strand of Sunian's hair casually. If you didn't understand this tone, you would think that Lee Baiken was talking about a stranger. You don't know, Lee Baiken said. I don't know. After all, why do I care so much about other women? Sunian was shocked by these words. It turns out that this guy also knows that he is someone else's woman. It turns out that the second male lead also had this idea. And I've been very busy during this period, and I don't have much time to waste a lot of energy on unnecessary people. When he said this, Lee Baiken hugged her from behind and began to play with Sunian's slender fingers. For example, things like getting a certificate, things like your bag. There are many things, so I didn't lie. Things to do about getting the certificate, from praying to Buddha to getting the certificate. Sunian naturally knew that he did it himself, but Bao. What is a bag? Lee Baiken was silent for a moment, and then sighed deeply. Oh, I'm sorry for spilling the beans. Susu, can you pretend that you didn't hear anything? After saying this, the man covered her lips with his fingers. Ear. Even though he said that, he leaned into her ear. As long as I block it quickly, my sweetheart won't hear it, and I won't hear the surprise I plan to prepare for her. Fortunately. These words made Sunian laugh out loud. What does it mean? Covering your ears and stealing the bell? End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 370. Chapter 370 used tweeters to express concern for Lan Min. Sunian went to find Sun Ying'er with Lan Min's information. Why do I feel like there's something wrong with Lan Min's face? Sun Ying'er said with a frown while holding Lan Min's photo. Is there any? Sunianze said carefully. If Sun Ying'er hadn't reminded her, Sunian wouldn't have discovered it yet. This heroine not only repaired her face, but also had a mole under her left eye. That's right, it's a mole. To prevent himself from misunderstanding, Sunian plucked the pile of documents given to him by Josu. Sure enough, I saw the document about Lan Min's mole in the document. Sunian. The location of this mole makes it look like a makeup blogger's revenge mole. Sunian really didn't know what to say. What kind of heroine is this? Is there something wrong with the author's mind? Have you seen too much of The Temptation to Go Home? Moreover, The Temptation of Returning Home has been a TV series for many years. Nowadays, even if it is written, few people who write novels know what the story of Huey's temptation of returning home is. Just when Sunian was speechless, Sun Ying'er put her hand on her shoulder. My good sister, are you afraid that someone with a tattoo of a revenge mole will come to take revenge on you? I'm scared, I'm really scared. Sister, you must protect me. If you don't protect me, then I will be doomed. Sunian turned around and threw herself directly into Sun Ying'er's arms, then cried loudly. Well, you can act coquettishly, but can you please stop rubbing on my chest? After saying that, he reached out and pushed Sunian aside. You already said that I am acting like a spoiled child. If that's the case, then why can't I rub it in? Sunian pretended to be aggrieved. Sun Ying'er picked up the coffee next to her and took a sip, but Lan Min's injury is really not easy to heal. Sunian flipped through the documents casually. If I guessed correctly, when Lan Min knew that she and Li Baikan went to the Civil Affairs Bureau, their first reaction was that there was a problem with their relationship. Even if there is no problem, just release the news. On the premise that people will only believe what they want to believe. Hyping up the so-called remarks a little, it will ferment quickly, but I didn't expect Li Baikan to do such an operation. Thinking of this, Sunian couldn't help but think of Li Baikan's words when he hugged him and held his fingertips. Just a simple thought made the tips of her ears feel warm. What are you going to do now? Sunian looked at Josu next to him. Josu immediately stepped forward respectfully. Then Sunian said, Josu, can you help me arrange some loudspeakers at Lan Min's resting place? Help me convey my congratulations to Lan Min for her successful plastic surgery, and hope that she can appear in my hospital as soon as possible before. You must know that the heroine of Mary Sue like this always has Lin Dao's thoughts. The more she says this, the more the heroine will think about it. Then this wound, tisk tisk. Sun Ying'er immediately understood what Sunian meant. When Lan Min hears what you said, he will definitely be eager to appear in front of you, want revenge, and want to get everything back, but the wound is not something that can be said. It'll be fine if it's good, and she still hurt her face. The two looked at each other and smiled. Sunian felt that she was really a qualified vicious female supporting character, and she could actually come up with such vicious ideas. Now that Sunian has come up with such a good idea, Josu feels that he must follow up. Okay, madam, I will do it according to your idea. By the way, since Lan Min is abroad, my personal suggestion is how about finding foreign mercenaries to handle this matter. End of this chapter.